is Radio Prague International, coming to you from the Czech capital.
Hello and welcome. I'm Anne-Marie Regner and you're listening to Czechia in 30 Minutes, the show where we give you a rundown of what's recently been happening in the country in just half an hour. Coming up on today's program, row over public spending as President vetoes government's budget rules reform. Successful designer Pavel Fuksa on creating strip for beloved club Slavia Prague. Miss Czech Republic on her Japanese and Moravian identity, beauty, and Miss Universe. But first, here's the news brought to you by Vít Pohanka.
News.
The Czech Republic will appoint new ambassadors to several key diplomatic posts in the coming weeks. Foreign Minister Petr Matřínka from the Motorists Party has confirmed. The first of 16 newly approved ambassadors are expected to take up their positions at the turn of July and August, with the remaining appointments to be completed by the end of the summer. Former Foreign Minister Jakub Kulhánek will become ambassador to the United States, moving from his current post as Czech ambassador to the United Nations. He will be succeeded at the UN by outgoing National Security Advisor Hynek Kmoníček. New ambassadors will also be appointed, for example, to Italy and the OECD. Czech Prime Minister Andrej Babiš from the ANO party said he hopes that Serbia will purchase Czech-made Aero L-39 Skyfox training aircraft following talks with Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić in Belgrade. Babiš discussed the potential deal during a visit accompanied by Industry Minister Karel Havlíček, also from the ANO party, and representatives of Czech companies, including aircraft manufacturer Aero Vodochody. He also highlighted opportunities to expand economic cooperation in sectors such as technology and healthcare. Both leaders described Czech-Serbian relations as strong and friendly, while Babiš said Czech companies are keen to increase their investments and business activities in Serbia. Czech Foreign Minister Petr Matřínka paid tribute on Thursday to the 4 Czech nationals who died in a boating collision near the Croatian city of Split in June. Together with his Croatian counterpart Gordan Grlić Radman, he laid wreaths at the site where a Czech sailing boat sank after colliding with a passenger catamaran. The ministers observed a minute of silence and expressed support for the victims' families. Croatian authorities are continuing to investigate the accident. During his visit, Matřínka also said the condition of a Czech woman struck by lightning on the island of Krk had stabilized slightly. One person has died after a Czech military Venom helicopter crashed at the 22nd Helicopter Airbase in Náměšť nad Oslavou, according to emergency services. 5 soldiers were on board the aircraft when it went down on Thursday. Rescue operations are continuing at the scene, and the Czech army has not yet released further details about the circumstances of the crash. It said more information would be provided once the situation allows. Fuel prices in Czechia rose sharply over the past week after the government ended its 3-month price cap on Monday. Diesel saw the biggest increase, climbing by nearly 5 crowns to an average slightly over 42 crowns per litre, while the price of natural 95 petrol rose also to slightly over 42 crowns. The government introduced the price cap in April following a spike in oil prices linked to fighting in the Middle East. Compared with a year ago, both petrol and diesel remain almost 8 to 9 crowns per litre more expensive. President Petr Pavel has vetoed a controversial bill overhauling the Czech Republic's public budget rules, arguing that it would undermine the long-term sustainability of public finances and weaken parliamentary oversight in favor of the government. The legislation will return to the Chamber of Deputies, which is scheduled to vote on overriding the veto on the 25th of August. The governing coalition, which holds 108 seats, has said it has enough votes to overturn the president's decision, requiring a minimum of 101 votes. Finance Minister Alena Schillerová from the ANO party has defended the bill, saying it is needed to allow greater spending flexibility, particularly for defense and strategic infrastructure, and warning that without it, the next year's budget deficit would be significantly constrained. Friday will be partly cloudy in Czechia with isolated light showers. Temperature highs will reach 21 to 25 degrees Celsius and around 20 degrees in the north and northeast.
Czech President Petr Pavel has vetoed a controversial amendment to the country's budget rules that would allow the government to exceed the approved state spending framework by up to 200 billion Czech crowns. The ruling coalition is determined to override the veto, arguing that the lack of extra funds planned would put at risk the country's economic growth, defense capabilities, and healthcare. Daniela Lazarova has the story.
Under the approved version of the amendment, in the course of the next 10 years, the Czech government would be able to exceed approved state spending by up to 10%, currently around 240 billion crowns, if the security situation worsens. This would enable the cabinet to increase defence spending above the parliamentary budget framework by 150 to 200 billion crowns, by excluding many major expenditures from the budget calculation, including spending on motorways, railways and dams. This loosening of purse strings has met with fierce criticism from the opposition and has raised concern among economists who argue that the bill would jeopardize the long-term sustainability of public finances. The bill was approved by the Chamber of Deputies in July after the ruling coalition overrode amendments proposed by the Senate, which had sought to impose stricter conditions on the government's ability to increase spending. In a post on X, President Pavel explained why he had used his right of veto.
This law allows the government to borrow significantly more than it can today over the next 10 years. If the state creates rules that make it easier to increase spending through borrowing, we will all ultimately pay the price. Our state debt is already growing at a pace that's no longer sustainable.
President Pavel also criticized the bill for expanding the government's ability to increase certain expenditures without parliamentary approval. He stressed that he was not questioning the importance of investments, but said they must remain subject to clear rules, responsible fiscal management and democratic oversight. Prime Minister Andrej Babiš slammed the veto, calling it irresponsible, ill-considered and activist.
With this decision, the president is endangering Czech healthcare, our country's defense capabilities, the construction of schools, the safety of our citizens and the development of energy resources.
Finance Minister Alena Schillerová said the ruling coalition would call a special session of the lower house in August and use its majority to override the president's veto.
Without the amendment, next year's budget deficit could not exceed 150 billion crowns, compared with the planned 310 billion deficit this year. This would put absolutely everything at risk.
The opposition parties have welcomed the president's decision. Civic Democratic Party leader Martin Kupka said the president had highlighted concerns his party had raised for months, warning that the bill threatened the long-term sustainability of public finances and weakened parliamentary oversight. The mayors and independents said the proposal would allow the government to continue increasing public debt unchecked and argued that fiscal responsibility should instead be enshrined directly in the Czech constitution. The opposition has already announced that it intends to challenge the legislation before the Constitutional Court if it ultimately comes into force.
Daniela Lazarova reporting. Graphic designer Pavel Fuksa has worked with some of the world's top brands, including Nike, Lego, and Google. Now Fuksa has turned his skills to a different field, designing the 2026-2027 strip collection for reigning Czech champion Slavia Prague, the soccer club he has followed all his life. Ian Willoughby spoke to him ahead of the start of the new top flight season this weekend.
I know that you have a long-time passion for football strips. Where does that come from?
Football fascinated me for as long as I can remember. Not just the matches or the entire visual culture surrounding the game. Crests, colours, strips, scarves, whatever, stadium graphics. It's been always some sort of a richest design discipline in the world. Long before Slavia ever called, I was already designing football strips as a personal hobby of mine.
Well, I know you did a project some years ago where you created football strips that were meant to be from the year 1918. What was that exactly?
As the first FIFA World Cup took place in 1930, I pushed it a bit backwards, and I designed fictional strips or kits for countries that existed at the time at 1918, working with their heraldry, with their flags and national symbols. But I've put it through the lens of contemporary football design. It was a purely personal project. Nothing ever happened in real life, but I liked how the history and identity went together with the modern design language of modern kits. It was later exhibited, I think, twice in Milan, although only as a series of posters. It was too expensive to actually produce these strips or kits.
Now, of course, you've done the new strips for Slavia Prague for the 2026-2027 season. What was the starting point for that whole project? I'm particularly interested in the home kit, which I guess for many fans is kind of the most important one.
The whole project started a year and a half ago when I got a phone call from the guys from marketing, from Slavia Prague marketing. And considering the home strip, for me, there was something that was untouchable. Because together with the club crest, it's probably the club's, let's say, strongest visual symbol. The stitched red and white split, the large star with two tiny stars above it, and it somehow became timeless. So I never wanted to redesign it or reinvent it in a self-centered, cynical way, or bury them on some unnecessary design gimmicks. So I just focused on introducing a handful of, let's say, subtle details. For example, the Czech and Czechoslovak tricolor on the collar and sleeve cuffs. And something, it's a personal touch of mine, it's those GPS coordinates under the back collar, hidden inside a strip. Let's say every player and supporter would carry a reminder of where their home is.
And that's the GPS for the stadium?
It's a GPS for the center point, for the center dot of the home pitch.
And when you did the designs, did the club immediately accept your proposals, or was there a lot of feedback?
I've counted it today, and I've created over 90 different proposals. Each one of them was discussed, went through, and decided whether we're going to go through with the proposals. So these three, because the third kit will be revealed sometime in September. So we only have home and away. So all of these three are the result of numerous discussions, talks between me, Slavia Marketing, as well as the producer, which is Castor.
Could you also say something about the away strip? What's your design for the away strip for Slavia Prague?
Well, the away strip, it's a completely different story. I wanted the kit or the strip to express hope during difficult times. That the main motive is light overcoming darkness. It's like renewal and the feeling of rising again. I'm not going to call it Phoenix, but it's intentionally clean and restrained, because the defining motive or defining design language is the gradient between black and red, as if the red color is somehow rising against the darkness from the bottom. And it seems that this strip has become the supporters' favorite. It was quite a surprise for me. People are praising and celebrating the home kit, but it's rewarding to see the fans, supporters embrace an unconventional color combination and wear it since the first day with pride. And it's the nicest feedback a designer can get.
Well, I've seen a lot of positive responses so far online. You'll be away for the beginning of the season, but how do you think it's going to feel the first time you see your club on the pitch wearing your creation?
I'm definitely looking forward to that moment. I'm looking forward to seeing people, to seeing the fans on the stadium as well as outside the stadium wearing the club colours that I helped, I wouldn't say reinventing, but I helped creating for the upcoming season. I've enjoyed seeing the hundreds of supporters on the day of the release that was on Thursday. And it was the middle of the heat wave and people were waiting for the strips to go on sale. That was a moment I realized that the project was big, was important for regular, different people from all around the Czech Republic.
That was graphic designer Pavel Fuksa speaking to Ian Willoughby. A reminder that you're listening to Czechia in 30 minutes, a half hour of news, current affairs, and interesting stories brought to you by Radio Prague International. The 22-year-old Miss Czech Republic, Sofia Osako, will represent the country at Miss Universe in Puerto Rico this November. Born to a Czech Moravian mother and Japanese father, and raised speaking mostly English, she sat down in the studio with me to discuss how the competition has deepened her connection to Czech culture, why beauty pageants still matter today, and how she hopes to showcase Czechia on the world stage. First of all, congratulations on winning Miss Czech Republic, Miss Universe. Why did you join the competition in the first place?
Honestly, it's a question that is harder to answer than you'd think, and the answer really changes every single time I answer it. But it would be, of course, to explore Latin America because the competition is being taken place in November in Puerto Rico. Also to really highlight the Czech beauty that we have here in our country.
You're a bit of an unusual Czech beauty, some might say, because of your background. You're Czech, Japanese, and you grew up speaking mostly English. How has this changed what it is to represent Czechia on the world stage for you?
I think more than anything, this experience taught me how to be more Czech. I think that sounds quite ironic because I am representing the Czech Republic and I am Czech and I did grow up here my whole life. But speaking English, even with my parents speaking English, with my siblings speaking English, this was the first time that I had the opportunity to enter a world where I would have to be speaking Czech to an extent where it isn't just casual, but also in a professional extent. And it really let me indulge into Czech culture and to really appreciate everything that Czech Republic has to offer.
Your mother's side is from Moravia, if I'm correct. How has that side of your family shaped who you are?
It's very interesting because I have two families, one in Japan and one in the Czech Republic. One is in the countryside, the Morava, and they are absolute polar opposites of one another. And I would say that I've seen both sides equally. To have a family in Morava who is just so grounded and their values are just so strong in love, family, and enjoyment of life, and just to be simply happy and what is life given to you. Then whenever we do go there, the activities that we do with each other is taborak, which is fire camp, and we pekačky. You grill sausages on the fire and you play hide and seek with your grandma, your great-grandma, your cousins. I think it's just really beautiful to touch grass every now and then, and it's a memory that really brings me back and allows me to touch ground whenever I'm in a place where I feel that my nose is sticking a bit too high.
Has your mother consciously tried to preserve any specific Moravian traditions within your life?
My mom does run the brand Tradice, which is a folklore fashion design, but more than the actual physical culture or like specific traditions, I think it's the way of life. My mom did grow up also in Japan from the age of 17. However, the Moravian roots are very deep within her, and it is more than just one thing that you could point out, but it is, I think, a value system that one carries within their own minds and their hearts, what they find important to them. So my mom always made sure I stayed kind to people who were working around me or just anybody who needed help around me. She always made sure that I felt that it is my duty, not just that I would want to, but it is my duty as a person to be right, to help them out for the sake of helping. And I think that is very strong in Morava. It's very different to Prague, but yeah, Moravian culture is very strong within me, I would like to say.
How would you describe your childhood between the Czech Republic and Japan, and how would you compare traditions? For example, how would you compare Christmas in those two countries?
Well, I celebrated Christmas only once in Japan, or maybe twice. And I had my aunt, and she was almost trying to convince us to get KFC because it's a really big thing there. And it sounds like a myth, but it is genuinely a really big thing to stand in line to KFC for 4 hours. They think the KFC guy is Santa Claus. Properly convinced. But in the Czech Republic, we celebrate it usually with my mom.
Beauty pageants have faced a lot of criticism for judging women primarily based on appearance. Why do you think they still have a place in society today?
Women's beauty is more important and more valuable than people would like to admit. In a way that it is not in an arrogant way, or neither is it in a literal way. I think female beauty is really what drives the world, or in a soft power way or in a subconscious way. And beauty pageants today, it is actually a misconception. It is not judged primarily on beauty. When you get to the competition, or even in the national one, you are judged far more than your physical appearance. You're judged on your determination, your kindness, your capabilities, and your potential in really succeeding and making an impact on the world. It does not matter if you're the most beautiful. You have to be the most lovable, I guess you could say in some way as well.
What would your definition of beauty be?
My definition of beauty has always been someone who is very content with themselves. I think beauty is contentment within. When someone is looking at the ground, no matter how beautiful they may be, you will never see the full beauty shine within, because it does come from within. The female gaze is becoming much more important in today's standard of beauty, meaning that it's not just young women that are considered to be beautiful. But for me, when I look at my mom, for example, who is in her 40s, or other women who are in their later ages, which is not late, but like 40 to 50, who are really beautiful and just shining within with their cool outfits and their smiles and their great careers, I think that more than anything moves me when I think of beauty, rather than when I see a 20-year-old model, because that is something that truly has contentment within itself, and that is something that has a reason to really feel proud and accomplished.
How do you feel then as a 22-year-old going into the competition, going up against someone from New Zealand, for example? Their representative is 40 years old. She is a mother. How do you feel being put in a competition that has so many different types of women in different walks of life?
I think that is really the base of the idea of why the competition happens to begin with. I think to have an age restriction to begin with was, I wouldn't say it was very right. I think all women of all ages are capable of being just as beautiful as one another. And I think having somebody to compete with, in a literal term, compete with, it's a pageant, is interesting, and I think it will teach me a lot about myself. Last time I competed, I was 18 years old, and I can say that for certain, the women who were 28, they were able to teach me things without even acknowledging the fact that they were trying to teach me anything.
How do you think these international pageants are important as an instrument of soft power for the Czech Republic?
I think Czech Republic being such a small country, we have flourished in other competitions actually in the few recent years, but it really does put us on the map. That means we have attention from the globe, the entire international community, which gives us opportunities for economical growth, for international connections.
Do you think that Japanese culture has changed your perception of beauty?
I think it has influenced my perception of beauty for sure. I think in Japan, the beauty standard there is to be more cute, to be very petite and very cutesy-tootsy. And in Czech, it's something to be more elegant, more diva, more fierce. So they are kind of contrasting in a sense. And I think having this contrast and having a mother who is, she fits into both categories. Having gone to an international school where then again, every person comes from a different background of what it means to be beautiful. I think rather than just Japan, I think my entire life has influenced me into saying what is true beauty. I am able to scope beauty in just about anybody and anything if you truly look at it the right angle.
You are currently also a university student outside of being a model and being Miss Czech Republic. What are your aspirations for the future?
I'm currently studying art history at the university here in Prague. I think my aspirations for the future would be just to simply have the knowledge
What do you hope to achieve from the competition in November, and how do you hope to represent the Czech Republic on the world stage?
Similar thing, of course. I am hoping that I achieve a high placement, at least in the top 5. I will be giving it my all with my team, and I think Czech Republic is a country that, at least in Miss Universe, we haven't been so overly prepared like the other competitions. We'd like to show that we too are a powerhouse of the beauty pageant world, and this is very niche, but those who do follow the pageants do understand that it is a lot of preparation. It is not simply you are beautiful, you walk and you do a good catwalk. No, it is months and months of preparation. It is knowledge that you have to really acquire and go out and seek out. The way I'd like to represent it is to stay true to myself. I think it is something that is actually rare within the pageant world, because it is expected to try to get you to fit into a mold that already exists for years and years and years, almost a century. For the Czech Republic, I'd like to show that we are unique in the way that we accept people for who they are and do something great for the Czech Republic in the Miss Universe competition.
That was Miss Czech Republic Sofia Osako speaking to me in the studio, bringing us to the end of today's half-hour broadcast. For more, you'll find us at www.radio.cz. This is Anne-Marie Regner saying thank you for listening and goodbye.